Hi there, it's me, Matt Lane, co-host of Because of the Universe, and it seems like you have missed a show, but don't worry, here it is. We hope you enjoy it.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Saturday and you are listening to Because of the Universe, your fortnightly satirical science radio panel extravaganza with him, Harry Manners, the connoisseur of whiskey, guzzler of fine coffee and boozer of the Builder's Brew.
Oh, I love that one, thank you very much. And here's Matthew Lane, purveyor of the field of knowledge, assassin of ignorance and notorious gymnastics Olympian.
Harry, I know we've said this quite a few times. I need you to go back through all of the shows, and I need you to
collate
write down
all of my introductions.
All of your introductions.
Yeah.
So just my particular favourite was, do you remember the one that was something about vanadium?
Oh, my sweet little vanadium.
Sweet little vanadium.
Yeah. I like that one.
Very.
My bismuth.
Yes.
Yes.
That one was.
Yeah, I like that one too.
We've got a great show lined up to you today.
We have. We've got some great guests.
Yeah, some great guests. We're going to be talking about some interesting things.
We are indeed.
Well, one particular theme, but it's a very interesting one. We've touched on it.
We have
quite
a bunch of
lot.
times. It's high time, I think, to bring it all together and really address it.
It is.
Properly.
If anything, I'm surprised it took us 2.5 terms.
Yeah, it took a long time, but I think it's been worth the wait.
It has been worth the wait.
Yeah, definitely.
It has been worth the wait. It's going to be good.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, so am I. But we'll tell you all what the topic is going to be a little bit later on. I should warn you, Ducky's not in the studio.
He's not in the studio.
So for anyone who's going to be tuning in to watch on webcam, he sends his regards. You know, he sends his affections.
What's happened?
Well, it links to the topic. He's on the ISS at the moment.
He's on the ISS.
Yeah.
He is
he advises
jet setting away all the time. I see. So he's performing vital mission.
He is
mission control. Yeah.
The little yellow soft duck.
Is he overseeing the 3D printing program?
I think he is the 3D printing program.
Oh, of course.
It's not overseeing it. There wouldn't be one.
No. He is vital.
Anyway.
To the role. Yeah.
To the news.
To the news.
Oh,
well, I think I'll go first then. So I want to talk a little bit about something that has been in the environmental sphere over the last week or so. So it's the news that the CO2 in the atmosphere has topped 400 parts per million for the first time.
It has. Not the first time.
Well, not for the first time, but it's now the average is settled above this level.
It's worth noting the last time that it was this high, we hadn't evolved.
Yes. I mean, this is being lauded as quite the milestone, even though we should note that this is no kind of mark in the sand. There is nothing special about this level. It's just being used as ammunition by environmental types and environmental agencies to highlight the fact this is still a major world issue. It's just to remind everyone who's becoming essentially jaded, as you would, in the constant maelstrom of scientific news, that this problem isn't just going away. It's not petering out. This is our entire economy, even if it decarbonizes, we have to accept the fact that CO2 levels are going to remain constant for about 100 years, because that's how long a CO2 molecule remains in the atmosphere before it's absorbed by the ocean or some kind of, or trapped in trees or something like that.
And I mean, the situation you're describing here anyway, you just said if our economy went entirely...
Yes, right now, if we woke up tomorrow and we had this marvellous new set of technology which didn't rely on any kind of carbon emissions, which
even if we did, we'd still have to get through the politicians and the business people.
Yes, absolutely. So it's topped this barrier on average for over a month in March 2015. So it's been confirmed to have risen 120 parts per million since pre-industrial times, and half of that has been in just the last 4 decades.
Yep.
So, like we said, there is no particular significance about this barrier. It's not like, okay, well, now we're at 400, the tornadoes are going to start in earnest. It is just, we should bear in mind
another reminder
a major issue.
That this is happening. The major issue that things are continuing with little heed.
Yeah, carbon targets as they are ambitious in terms of what we can realistically expect from politicians and from world economies, but they are still woefully inadequate if we're really going to combat this change and curtail the continuing rise. Yeah,
I mean, there's a whole different conversation to have about why it is that increased CO2 is a problem.
Yes.
But I think that is a different conversation.
It is.
At least this means that people cannot say that we're not pumping things out into... Because, I mean, it is incredible
Yes,
in fact, I'm just going to bring in my next news story here because this links
Nice link.
entirely. It is incredible how many people are still climate change deniers or are of the belief that we as a species cannot change our
have no
climate.
effect on the
And
planet.
just to demonstrate how much this is, I know this is America.
Yeah.
Who?
So we have to take this as a
So
pinch of salt.
you do have to take it with a pinch of salt, but they are certainly arguably the most powerful country
Yes.
on the planet, a world leader in most respects.
Yep, certainly in terms of consumerism, they pump out the most.
They do
waste
by a
products
mile.
and so forth,
So we should be paying attention to this.
Yeah.
In a vote last week, the US Senate said that climate change was not caused by humans. It was a 50 to 49 vote.
The US Senate said.
Yep.
So, therefore, true.
The Senate said.
Yeah, the
not
Senate
the scientists.
said. No, the Senate.
The Senate.
They decided.
They needed 60% of the vote. They
I
only
see.
got 50. 50 to 49. So a couple of people must have
It's very interesting that that's considered a choice. It's something, we have to decide. We'll come down on that decision, and therefore that decides the truth of the matter.
Yeah, so the headlines read like this: the Senate rejected the scientific consensus that humans are causing climate change days after NASA and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration declared 2014 the hottest year ever recorded on Earth. And I mean, this is because it's a Republican-controlled Senate.
Right.
So there's been a lot going on. I know. So just for any listeners who would be interested, we're going to start doing some podcasts.
Yes, we are.
Between radio shows. Which will be fun, just because
to get things off our chest.
People might want to hear what me and Harry have to say, which is a ludicrous idea.
Drivel.
But we're going to talk in our first podcast. We're going to really talk in detail about what's been going on.
Yes, I think we're both itching to get.
We
to
are
this,
because
really.
there's been so much news, and I know I've brought it up every single time something has come up in the news.
Yeah, but there is a lot going on, and we don't have time to address it in these shows.
Now I've got some quotes.
Okay.
Just because these are senators, these are the people who run these committees, run these councils. These are the people who decide funding for NASA, etc. And it's incredible. So this was said by the chairman. Okay, are you ready?
Yep.
The chairman of the Environment Committee.
Okay.
Who is an enthusiastic denier of climate change. He said it's the biggest hoax perpetrated against mankind. He said this: the hoax is there are some people so arrogant to think they are powerful that they can change the climate. Man cannot change the climate.
And does he provide any kind of backup for this?
Don't be ridiculous.
No data.
Don't be ridiculous. Data is evil.
Oh yes, of course. Well, that's how it works. Like the Senate, insists. If you just say something isn't true, it's not. No. And if you say something is, it definitely is.
Yeah. And I mean, I wasn't going to bring this up, but the Thursday before this vote happened, NASA's Earth science budget was cut by 20%. And just to be clear, NASA as an organization, what they do in the Earth Sciences Department, they're the people who monitor weather and climate. Not climate change necessarily, just climate. So when you cut NASA's Earth science budget by 20%, you are cutting your ability to be able to forecast, to predict more complex weather patterns. I mean, we know that there's been more complex weather hitting in New York. Yes, we know what's going on in California. There's going to be more severe weather patterns.
Definitely, yes.
And yet, here we are, the GOP, the Grand Old Party, House Republican, slashing funding.
Well, you can't say anything to that, can you? You just have to nod and smile and pray.
And what we must do in this country is we must not follow suit. No. We must not follow suit.
I don't think we're in much danger of that, but it is all you can say is that's very American.
It is very American.
It is.
Do you have something more cheerful?
I do, actually.
Good.
So a new enzyme has been developed which can transform blood types into the O universal donor type. So this is a study published in the Journal of American Chemical Society. Discusses that they've engineered a new enzyme and it can essentially snip off the antigens, which make human blood types incompatible. So it converts, blood A, B, positive, negative, into O type, which anyone can then accept if they need a blood transfusion.
That's impressive.
It is. So, I mean, these things had a limited ability to do it before. But the team used a process called directed evolution. So essentially, it's they perform the gene mutations that we're familiar with. Then they use natural selection by just selectively breeding the ones that produce the mutations most promising. and then you repeat the process. And by doing this, they managed to increase its effectiveness by 170 times.
Really?
Yeah. So, of course, there's still work to be done. We have to highlight this. You know, all my stories tend to end like this.
I wanted to know how close this is to being something that we can use in medical professions.
It's over 90% effective now, but essentially we have to be sure that it's 100% effective before it's ever used, because the human immune system is so incredibly sensitive to any kind of presence of antigens. So this is going to, you know, revolutionize the idea of blood shortages and things in the very near future. But at the moment, you know, any kind of trace of the antigens pretty much induces anaphylactic shock within seconds. So it's quite dangerous to even think about testing it in reality before we're sure that it's 100% effective. But as I've said, it's already 170 times more effective than it was before, and this has only taken a few months.
And it would make such a difference, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, there are rare blood types like AB negative, which are incredibly hard to source. If somebody needs a transfusion, it can sometimes, you know, it'd be very difficult. They have to, usually hospitals don't even stock it. You know, they just don't have the supply. They have to send for it. And, you know, people race across the city to bring this blood and risk being killed themselves. You know, it's a serious issue. And, I mean...
good news.
Yeah, it's a nice little story.
Good news. Yeah. I've got a nice little story.
Lovely.
Ha ha ha.
Right, a little giggle there. Okay.
It's not as funny as some of them. It's not koala chlamydia or anything like that.
You can never top koala chlamydia.
No.
Gold standard.
I don't know. I just saw this morning. Reports have been released about... there was an experiment where they sprayed spiders with nanotubes.
Okay.
Graphite nanotubes.
I see. Were they trying to make some kind of super spiders?
That is exactly what they were trying to do, right?
Oh no!
I know,
no.
And it's like something out of a film.
Yeah.
And then they've measured the tensile stress and strain of the webs that these spiders produce before and after being sprayed.
Have they become super
spiders? And they've become super
that's
spiders.
Amazing.
Because they've absorbed these... They've obviously assimilated these compounds.
Oh my God.
Their webs...
So this is genuine. This is in earnest.
I'm not joking. I've
spoof.
checked my sources. 15... I mean, this is a different language, so I'm going to struggle with the word. Falcidae or Falcidae, I'm not sure. Spiders from the Italian countryside have been sprayed, and five of them with water containing graphene.
Right.
And the other 10 with water containing carbon nanotubes. They collected the spider's silk before and after the experiment, testing its fracture strength, toughness modulus, and Young's modulus. Those things, physicists will all know what they are.
Yep. So essentially just means of testing
the stiffness
strength,
of the material, essentially.
I can't... That's brilliant. There's nothing you can say to that.
Nope.
Other than just, I love reality.
Yep.
That's cool.
I'm trying to imagine these tiny little...
super spiders.
I want to know how they measured the stress. They must have like really small
tiny
pieces of
pliers.
But I mean, it's an impressive... It's the strongest spider silk ever, you know.
Really?
It was already for that material type. It was
spider silk is very strong, isn't it? It has tensile strength greater than steel or something, doesn't it? If you test it on a large scale.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for that.
So, super spiders.
Super spiders.
Cool.
That might beat koala chlamydia.
I don't think it beats koala.
Well,
anyone listening, I mean, we've just brought koala chlamydia.
We should have a poll.
Go back.
I mean, if you have an opinion, message in koala chlamydia or super graphene spiders.
Yeah. We'll give out the details for people to get in contact with us in just a moment. But go back and listen to. I think it may have been the first or second.
I think it was the first
radio show or first time. Go back and listen to it.
Yeah,
I think it was Do We Have to Die?
Do We Have to Die?
Right.
It's the first show we did in the first
and
time. It's online.
But just the news in general for the first few shows was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Anyway, Harry, give out the communication details.
Okay, so you can get in touch with us through email, so that's becausetheuniverse@aol.com, or Facebook, so that's facebook.com/becausetheuniverse, or on Twitter, and that's @costheuniverse, COS, costheuniverse.
And do tell us, what do you think is better? Do you think that actual super spiders with super silk using graphene and carbon nanotubes, or curing koala chlamydia, which they catch from rubbing trees?
They did. You can also get in touch with us through the Raw website, so you can just go onto raw.com and then just click on the message little button there, and we'll get a message right in the studio.
Great. Let's break for a song, and then we'll come back and bring the guests in and the topic and get the show on the road.
Brilliant. So we're going to break for City Lights by Culture Shock.
Raw 12:51 a.m.
And we are back. This is Because of the Universe, and we've got a great show lined up for you guys. So if you are trying to get in contact with us, but you missed our contact details, you can get in touch with us with becauseoftheuniverse@aol.com, or on Facebook, so it's facebook.com/becauseoftheuniverse, or Twitter, so that's twitter.com/COS the universe, cause the universe.
Wonderful.
Lovely.
It's that time, Harry.
It is.
It's the exciting time.
Time for the topic.
It is time for the topic. The topic this week, and Ducky is beaming it down to my laptop
from the ISS.
Yeah, on his 3D printed tech.
Of course,
that he has there. Is space travel ? Is our question.
Very fitting.
Space travel ? And I wonder, Harry, do you think, because this always seems to happen, and I have no idea how, because it's almost as though we know what the topic is going to be before the show.
It is,
which
sometimes.
is definitely not the case.
No.
I wonder whether we have guests that are appropriate.
It would be amazing, wouldn't it? I mean,
you know what would be really good is if we had people from the Warwick Rockets Society.
That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Oh, if only. But I have no idea.
Can you imagine?
I know we've got a Matt and we've got an Ed.
We have.
So let's introduce them. Let's find out. Ed, tell me you're called Ed. I was about to say tell me your name, but tell me your name. Tell me the year that you're in and the subject you're doing, and then give us that customary Because of the Universe truth and a lie.
Okay, so I'm Ed. I'm first year of mathematics and physics. And the truth for life.
You look terrified.
Okay, so one of them is I lived in Luxembourg. Okay. And the other one is I've traveled the whole world, like sideways.
Okay.
Where are you from?
If you're from Luxembourg, then this is going to be easy.
My nationality is French and Italian.
Okay. I'm gonna.
So either you've been, around the world in 80 days kind of style around the world, or you what was it? You lived in Luxembourg?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get back to it. Let's get the other one, and then
sure.
Okay. So Matt, same for you. Tell me a little bit about yourself, what you're doing, and give us that truth and a lie.
So I'm Matt. I'm a second-year mathematician, and I was either punched in the face walking through Canley or scouted for a semi-professional football team as a goalkeeper.
Well, I don't know anything about you, but I know that the first one is believable.
Oh, yeah, entirely believable.
Because Canley.
It might have been me.
That punched him in the face. Yes. You horrible person. Did you punch people in the face in Canley?
Well, Friday nights, beer.
It was on a Friday.
Yeah. Oh, there we are then.
Okay.
I apologise.
Well, I'm voting. Okay. Well, right. So Ed, around the world or living in Luxembourg.
I'm going to say that you circumnavigated the world.
I was going to say that, but for the sake of it, I'll say that you lived in Luxembourg. And Matt, I'm going to say.
I think you.
What was the second one? I think it's the second one. I think it's the. Okay. What was the second one again?
When I was younger, I was scouted as a goalkeeper for a semi-pro team.
So I think it's that one. Okay. So Ed, tell us.
And Matt is right.
Yes, because I haven't won any for the last 8
shows
or something ridiculous. And Matt,
I was scouted.
Harry,
take
that! I am back with a vengeance.
Damn!
Ha!
You've beaten my streak.
What's
going on?
I was letting you win. That was all it was.
Oh yeah,
I thought you needed a boost in confidence.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And I just, out of curiosity, are you from the Rocket Society?
Yes.
No way.
Can you imagine? That's amazing.
Way. Oh,
luck is on our side once again.
It is.
It happens every week.
Always on us. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for coming in.
Yes.
We're looking forward to talking about space travel ? I don't know. Do we want to go forward in time, back in time, right now?
Well, this is a huge topic.
Yeah.
We pretty much talk about this every single week, and it's like we said, it's ridiculous. We haven't had a show on this already, and I'm really excited to finally get to it. Like I just said, it's a huge topic, so there's a million things we could say. So I think maybe we could just hand over to the guys from Rockets first off, Ed, and then Matt, and then we'll just, what typifies space travel for you, or what really interests you the most about space travel, Ed?
Well, one of the things that interests me the most would be to know more about possible life in the universe.
Right.
That would be the nirvana of space travel for me, is to discover. And it would be even better if it's say somehow intelligent life.
Right. So we're not talking just microbes here.
Yeah.
Right.
It would be amazing to find some kind of alien.
Brilliant.
Cat
well, maybe
thing.
we can talk a little bit later about the realities and the science behind that. Great. So, Matt, how about you?
I think intelligent life in the rest of the universe would be really interesting, but I think, as far as we know, we're the only intelligent life. If that could possibly be true.
I find
it's probably unlikely.
What is it that we mean by this word interesting?
I was about to say that we can come on to what we define as intelligent life.
Well, I'm just interested what we mean by interesting. Academically, hypothetically.
I was referring to what drives you to pursue this or take an interest.
But I think we're all going to die unless we go to a different solar system and set up base somewhere else.
Right.
So
yeah, okay.
That's a big group.
Yeah. Well, no, I think this is a popular didact, isn't it? I think Stephen Hawking often says this. He's often paraphrased as saying that our only chance of survival as a species is to essentially get off this rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so maybe we can talk a little bit about the history behind space travel. So, we can quote the space race facts and things like that. So, first things, we sent rhesus monkeys into orbit in 1948, just to test whether this was even possible, whether it's feasible to survive in orbit. And then by 1957, the Soviets sent a dog, Laika, into low Earth orbit. She survived, and then, of course, very quickly after that, they got Sputnik into orbit, which is the first orbital craft, right? The rocket guys are nodding along here, so I'm very much encouraged.
Beep.
I've done my research. Beep, beep. Yeah, absolutely. So, and then a couple of years later, so we've got 1961, we had the first man in space, Yuri Gagarin. If anyone's ever been walking around Westminster, there's a statue of him. I think it's brass.
Westminster?
I think so, yeah. I've seen it, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
Quite unexpected. I don't really know why it's there, but it is. And then, of course, that year, as soon as Gagarin was in space, Kennedy announced the proposed space race to the moon. And that's essentially what has driven the explosion in technology, which we now benefit from. So, I mean, this was an enormous venture. 1964 to 1966, it was 4% of the US federal spending budget. And the Apollo program cost $83 billion, and it employed about 400,000 people. This captured a generation of people,
and not just one generation.
No, but it's fueled generations since. I mean, we owe pretty much everything that we accomplished in space to that. And you could argue that was the golden age. We haven't really managed to capture the public imagination.
There are so many different ways to go with this.
Yes,
this is reminding me of the last show we did, when we talked about science fiction and the relationship between science fiction and society. There's an amount of, like with that, there was a golden age, and where I think it's a bit uncertain.
Yeah.
But and we will talk about this. I wonder whether it's that uncertainty that means this is a new golden age.
Yes, because of course our exploration and our science will govern. Will be governed by what's socially relevant. Yeah. So, perhaps would you guys say that we could argue against this idea of the golden age, in that we benefit now from enormous ventures like geostationary satellites, the enormous number of satellites that we have that provide us with myriad benefits. Is that more culturally relevant? Are we just overlooking this starry-eyed idea of exploration?
We take things for granted, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we take things for granted a lot. Because I study maths, and people ask, well, what's maths even used for? Well, just about everything that you use at the moment.
It's when people say things like, why did I get taught Pythagoras' theorem in school? I'm never going to use that ever. And I'm just like, you have no idea what you're talking about.
No, but it is easy if you don't use it to overlook its value, and the same goes for space technology. So, I mean, you guys are involved in Warwick Rockets. So
tell us a little bit about that, just first of all. Give us a plug. Go on.
Well, first of all, it's a very new study. It was just created about a little more than a year ago. Mm-hmm. And, this year we went through a lot of projects. Some just didn't work out and were abandoned. And some worked out better. Yeah. Like the Hummingbird, which would be like this kind of platform that flies off and then lands again. Mm-hmm. And the other one, the one I'm directing in cooperation with computing study, is the high altitude balloon. So hopefully everything will be successful.
So you're building?
Yeah, we're making it and putting all cameras and hoping to get nice footage and hoping. Actually, the real objective
Yeah.
is to send it and to find it again. 'Cause
Right.
even if it only goes like, I don't know, 10 kilometers, 15, it's still a big victory. It's still like something we can correct, and
Yeah.
then next year or the years after, improve.
Yeah.
So at the moment, like, our objective is to send it and then to find it.
Mm.
That's basically, and then the rest is, could
You'll
be
decide
better.
after
could
that.
be-
I mean, it's interesting that small organisations like this
Yeah, can actually.
exist,
Achieve
function,
this, yeah.
but in lots and lots of places.
Yes.
I mean, they start small and they grow. It's like Surrey Satellites at Surrey University,
Yeah, and now
which is now very, very
yeah,
large.
Absolutely, they produce an enormous number of parts, don't they?
Mm.
I think also Manchester build bits of satellites. And everyone seems to. It's much more a collaborative effort than the idea of NASA charging in and saving the world. It's. I mean, we've seen the rise of SpaceX as their new Dragon module has taken over from the shuttle program, right? To restock the ISS.
Okay, it restocks the ISS, and soon they're looking to be able to send astronauts to the ISS as well.
That's
But
brilliant.
they need to pass a couple of tests to get like the license from NASA.
Right. So am I right in saying that it docked with one of the modules on the ISS for like 2 weeks ago for the first time?
Yeah, it was about then. That's when they recently did the second test of their first stage landing
Right.
thing on a drone ship out at sea.
This is really exciting. I mean, where do you guys see the industry going? I mean, with your experience, what would you?
I kind of,
how do you see it evolving?
I think it might be better to first ask where the industry is at, just for people
Yeah.
who don't quite know
If-
what's
for
going
those
on.
not informed.
I guess mostly it's just satellite stuff. We have a few probes across the solar system doing research, finding interesting things, but commercially it's mostly satellites and NASA paying people to send stuff to the International Space Station, like resupply missions and things like that. So yeah,
But what about these big sparkly places like Virgin Galactic and SpaceX?
so they want to do commercial space flights, basically sending people on a suborbital trajectory out the atmosphere in space for about 5-6 minutes and then come back down. Blue Origin want to do that as well, which is another new rocket company.
Right.
They did their first launch, which was successful. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. And they're looking for test astronauts. If anyone's interested, you should check them out because that sounds quite cool.
Yeah.
So that was Blue Origin,
Blue Origin.
looking for test astronauts.
Yeah.
Well,
Ooh.
send in my application.
Yep.
So they have a big capsule. It can fit 6 people. And they send it up out the atmosphere. So, yeah, I guess where I see the industry heading is just selling time in space to people for a while to raise cash and then sort of expanding from there. I mean, people are going to want ridiculous things. People always want ridiculous things. And
Absolutely.
eventually, if we're technologically advanced enough, people will be like, well, actually, let's do a flyby of Mars. That's what I fancy. And they'll pay ridiculous money.
Ed, you're nodding.
Yeah, I mean, Ed, do you want to
Quite a lot.
go? I mean, I think what we're kind of stabbing at here is that the motivation behind this kind of thing, the limitation is fundamentally economic, and I think that's essentially what Matt was touching on there.
For our solar system.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. Do you want to build on that? And, how do you see things being funded? I mean, Matt was just saying, commercially and people, the rich and the.
I think it's very right for more private companies. At the beginning, they're gonna need money because anything that goes in space is very expensive.
Yeah.
So they're gonna need this money, and I think just making rich people travel to space for a while is a very good way to get money.
Definitely.
Because rich people are gonna pay for that kind of thing.
I mean,
And,
if you could afford it, you would, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
It's like,
Who wouldn't really?
Justin Bieber has bought tickets, isn't he?
Yes. I think.
£250,000 ticket.
Yeah, I think Tom Cruise
Film a
does as
video.
well. Yeah.
Film a music video.
In orbit. Oh god,
Ugh.
no. Can you
Yeah.
believe it?
And-
How about mining? I think this is
Yeah.
something that is, also lauded as a very big proponent of something that would drive the industry forward.
It's true. We know that some asteroids and stuff like that are kind of made of diamonds and things. So
Yeah, I think they're made of rare earth metals.
Yeah.
There's a great abundance of that, and they even have amino acids, complex organic molecules in abundance.
They have a lot of very interesting thing that would be very useful or could be sold again. But
Absolutely.
I think at the for quite a bit of time in the future, this is going to be way too expensive. The cost of getting things and taking it back is just going to
Well, something
completely.
that I think is interesting, and maybe we can touch on here, is that we've mentioned 3D printing before, and I think that this hasn't been really appreciated by space exploration companies. The idea that if you can get a 3D printing facility set up on, say, the moon, you've got the raw materials there to build the rest of the
I have
station.
an article here entitled NASA's 3D printing factory in space. 3D printing and robots could also be used in the search for extraterrestrial life, according to NASA. The orbital factory NASA is developing with technology from Tethers Unlimited Incorporated will use 3D printing and robots to fabricate giant structures such as antennas and solar arrays of up to 1 kilometer in length. So 3D printers floating around.
Because this is essentially what we're talking about here. To those who don't really get why we're saying it, is you're circumnavigating the idea that it takes an enormous amount of resources to get something out of the Earth's gravity field. To get it into orbit is the major obstacle. Moving around in space is relatively easy compared to this enormous amount of thrust you have to develop to get this out of the atmosphere.
The stat I was reading this morning was $20,000 per kilogram.
That's amazing. Per kilogram. So, bag of flour, 20,000. That's amazing.
It's a lot of money.
And then, I mean, if you picture a rocket, the kind of rocket orbiters that we do, they are.
I mean, everyone imagines the Saturn V, right? Which is huge.
But I think it's actually quite easy to misinterpret how big they are. I mean,
for that tiny little pod at the top.
Because people have seen them at Cape Canaveral or whatever it is, but there's nothing near to give you any perspective.
No.
So the idea, these are several massive. They're like the size of the Statue of Liberty.
And really, I mean, the likelihood is if you go and see one, it's more likely to be on its side, right, than actually standing up.
So they stand right up at the end, don't they, when they're out to launch? Is that right?
Well, as in, how many people get to go to Cape Canaveral to actually see a rocket take off? But if you get the opportunity to go to Houston or something and see one of these things in a museum in inverted commas, it'll be on its side or in pieces. So you don't get that full wow factor.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I think you guys have mentioned that, I think it was Matt saying within this solar system it's going to be limited economically.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the potential for interstellar travel?
I think you would probably die of cancer before you get anywhere unless you're going very, very fast.
Right. So I think here we'll be talking about, subluminal velocities, the idea that you would have some kind of generational starship.
Yeah.
So we're talking about moving below the speed of light. So, we're not trying any sci-fi wacky ideas here. We're just aim at a star and go there.
So, as I said, there's tons. Well, the biggest risk is there's tons of sort of solar particles and deep space rays and stuff coming off loads of different sort of celestial bodies, and we're relatively safe here on Earth. You've got a magnetic field, a very big magnetic field, which protects us, and we don't quite know the effects of living out in space for very long periods of time.
Yeah.
So I think the most recent people to go up to the ISS, one of them is going to spend a year there, and that will be the most anyone's ever spent in space.
Right, so that's quite. So I think that is quite surprising in itself. That statistic that we have had space technology for about 50 years now, and the longest anyone's ever spent is going to be a year.
Yeah,
in orbit,
because it's really quite dangerous.
Yeah. So what kind of physiological effects does it have? I mean, you have all kind of bone degradation. Your muscles turn to slow. People often can't walk when they get back.
Well, I think the most lethal would be cancer.
Yeah.
It's like getting a constant dose of chemotherapy.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, just like literally this morning I was reading because NASA found a new problem in its mission to Mars, because we know that, I don't know if you know, that NASA is attempting to send people to Mars by 2034.
Okay, yeah.
So in about 15 years or so. But they discovered that there was a big problem with radiations, and they were trying to test them on some animal. I can't remember exactly which, but the results were that those animals would lose memory and intelligence.
Wow.
They would be a little stupid, a little dumber than they were before.
Wow. So it would actually impair the mental abilities of the astronauts by the time they got there.
Yeah, this is because some of the rays that you get are ionized, and so it just
destroys brain tissue, just like anything else.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I think
it is worth pointing out, though, that we continue to make and have made significant leaps forward in radiation protection technology.
Yes.
But complex polymers like RFX1, which is what NASA generally uses, just looks like white plastic, is excellent. It's absolutely excellent protecting against radiation.
See, I'm unfamiliar with it. Is this, what kind of density is that material? I mean, is that a light material that would be, you could realistically graft onto a spacecraft, or is that something to shield a base on a planet?
When I was doing the ISSDC and was designing these things over in America, RFX-1 was the stuff that we were told by NASA is what they will use.
Right.
So I make the assumption that it's lightweight enough that you can put it on a craft.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's something that we could also talk. I mean, we could talk about interstellar craft would have to be of a certain magnitude. There would be enormous ventures. I think are there any ways that you know of circumnavigating this idea of inbound radiation? I mean, I think something I'm familiar with is the Bussard ramjet. You know, essentially it creates a kind of magnetic umbrella in front of it to deflect, hydrogen, which is in the way.
Some people were thinking of putting like a magnetic field shield around it, but it like the calculation tells you just need way too much energy.
Yeah. So by conventional technology, essentially we're saying we're stuck with quite a lot of inbound radiation, and you'd be limited.
But, I mean, on the case of energy, particularly since we're going to be wanting to move to ion drives and MPDs, and away from chemical thrusters, you're already using your energy for. It becomes something that you must have enough of, more so than ever before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you haven't brought it up. I was hoping you were going to. Because we were talking about this before the show. I think it's just people have seen it in the news. There's been lots of graphics of this thing that have gone around. It's kind of caught people's science fiction style imagination. Tell us a little bit about the warp drive.
Okay, so the Alcubierre, I think, was the first person to like invent the idea.
Didn't he? I think it was 97. He published his paper.
Yeah, and it would basically be this kind of big ring around the spaceship that warps, that changes the properties of space around the spaceship, and so allows for it's allowed. First of all, it's allowed by relativity.
Right.
Like all of his work is based on relativity. It's not proved that it's possible, but it's not disproved, and they think it's possible. But at the moment, the biggest problem is the amount of energy necessary.
Right.
Even though in the last few years, people have changed that energy from like the amount of the mass of Jupiter in antimatter, so that's an enormous amount of energy, to I think a solar mass or something.
Right.
I heard that it was the energy output of the US for a year.
Right.
So it's down to something that we have produced, but we've never stored in one place or produced in the amount of time that we would require it on a spacecraft.
Right, so just to summarize here, so we're talking about some kind of method of actually going faster than the speed of light, which doesn't violate the kind of laws of you can't break the speed limit.
Yeah, so what it does is it moves space-time, because...
Okay, so essentially we're using like the jet engine principle, we're moving space around us and manipulating space itself instead of moving forward from A to B.
Yeah.
Right, so it's essentially, how does this deal with things like time paradoxes? People are always talking about this kind of thing, and it's always a very muddy issue that nobody agrees on.
Well, time paradoxes just don't exist according to relativity. Like many people talk about, for example, the so-called twin paradox, which is not a paradox.
It's not a paradox. Yes,
it's not at all a paradox. So it just follows the laws of relativity and does not violate like going back in time or that kind of things.
Yes,
but it does create other problems. As for example, it's very dangerous because antimatter is produced in the process, and antimatter touching matter makes a big explosion.
Right.
To make it simple.
We've all seen this in like Angels and Demons in science fiction.
Yeah, for instance,
that classic kind of blinding flash of light. Yeah. Yep. So this is the kind of this would be developed by the action of the drive itself if you could build one. And
yeah,
you
from what
want to be near it when that
I think it would be like the way the ring works. It just does it. It just produces antimatter and exotic particles a lot.
Yeah.
And it just, I'm not sure.
I mean, the yield calculations for this, as you said, have been reduced dramatically, but you still need to begin with something called a negative energy density, which so far no one has ever encountered or really knows how to build in the first place, except if you had some kind of properties of, as of yet undiscovered type of matter.
More interestingly, the not the theory of engaging with negative plasma energy densities of the vacuum and stuff like that, but the theory of trying to then utilize those things, even if you can work out exactly how to, requires you to break the conservation of momentum. So there are other problems with a warp drive. I mean, this is something that doesn't get talked about very much, is breaking the conservation of momentum, which I find amusing. I have not just because I think it's important, you know, you have to turn to NASA. I have an official statement from NASA on the subject of the warp drive. Ever since the sound barrier was broken, people have turned their attention to how we can break the speed of light barrier, but warp drive, in inverted commas, or any other term for faster than light superluminal travel, still remains at the level of speculation.
And yes, it's quite cool to talk about it anyway.
It comes up every couple of years.
It does.
You can look at it.
It's something people want to hold on to.
Yeah.
So, guys, I want to talk a bit about something called Mars-1. I think everyone else has probably heard of this, and if they haven't, they probably have no interest in science. So I think we're going to come to this. We're just going to break for a song quickly, and then we'll come right back to this.
Let's do that.
Lovely. So we are going to break for George Edra. Did you hear the rain?
12:51.
12:51.
12:51 a.m.
And welcome back, everybody. This is Because the Universe, and we're talking about space exploration. So we're in the last 15 minutes of the show, and we're going to be wrapping up with a very exciting topic. We're talking about Mars-1. So, guys, what do you think?
Hoax.
Hoax?
Complete hoax.
Well,
Complete hoax.
I'm with them. I know you disagree.
I love the idea of it. I know it's completely unrealistic.
He wants to put his name down for it.
If I could go and it was a real thing, I would go.
Yeah.
I would. So should we do a very quick kind of overview for anyone who isn't familiar with this?
Yeah, do it.
Sure.
Yeah. So essentially, this is a program which is projected for around 2024 to send people, a small group of people, on a one-way trip to Mars, land on the surface, and perform research and all that kind of thing, and establish a great amount of data on how people survive in long-term space travel. But essentially, it's a mission to go and die there. There's no way to get back. There's no projected return flight, and they were even thinking about funding this by doing some kind of Big Brother-style documentary.
It's just awful.
Well, I think it sounds fascinating. I think, so you guys think this is a complete hoax and unrealistic?
The more and more I read about it, the more I'm sort of skeptical.
Right.
So, some people genuinely think it's a scam, and some candidates have sort of been asked to get funding from people they know. So some people are suspicious that it's some kind of giant, great Ponzi scam type of thing.
Okay.
And then it just sounds, even if it was real, and we broadcast the whole mission, and they get enough money to do it, I think they'll go there and something horrible will happen.
Right.
Well, they don't seem to know what they were doing.
No.
Like, the serious designs they released were they were going to build pods above ground on Mars.
Which is really not a great idea.
Pods
Above ground.
Yeah.
Okay.
They weren't going to build them below ground.
Oh, okay. So on the
Using their
ground. I
natural
thought you meant
radiation
literally
shielding.
in the sky.
No. This is not Venus. This is Mars.
Above the surface, yeah. So instead of utilising the obvious radiation shielding of
the rock,
of some topsoil,
basalt,
they were just going to build some pods outside. I think, I can see what you're saying here, that everything seems a bit wishy-washy and very blue skies and very, very starry-eyed. It's almost commercialised to the point that the science is being ignored.
Well, what proportion of... I know it's people applying, and then there must be a rigorous process, but what proportion of people are academics?
Okay, so I actually know a bit about... So they've announced the shortlist, and I've looked up these people. Most of them are under 30. They're all PhDs in astronomy and technology. If someone's a doctor, there's someone who's a lab technician, but they are all very highly qualified people doing high level degrees, and it seems as though they're very enthusiastic. I think lots of people have been shown around. They've been taken to SpaceX and all this kind of thing. It's all been very showbiz.
Ed, I could see you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that was an objection. There was hand waving.
That was an objection to using the process of recruiting those people.
I'm assuming there is a process.
It was really not rigorous.
Really?
There was this one of the 100 selected basically said what happened, what did they do to him, and there was like a 10 minutes interview on webcam, so not even like face to face. There were like questionnaires, but for instance there was I'm not sure if there was known or close to known physical tests. So the guy could literally be sick, or could have like a heart disease, something that would obviously not make you compatible with such a mission. and they wouldn't know.
That's fascinating. I mean, we commonly, I think everyone's aware of the idea of the kind of test astronauts have to go through. They have to be at the absolute peak of physical condition. There can be nothing wrong with them at all. You have to be able to, even things like balance, mental abilities, the ability to cope under, G forces, and all that. You have to be, superior to Olympic athletes. These guys. And be geniuses as well.
Yeah, I mean, the main reason I'm not paying much attention to it is because almost everything you read is from another source.
Yes.
It's from another party. It's an article. I don't think I've ever read something directly from Mars One.
No, but I think I love this idea because it doesn't really matter whether it's realistic. Essentially, what it does is it keeps hope alive, because every time we hear something about Mars that isn't from ventures like Mars One, it's something like NASA saying it's going to be another 10,000 years before we bother. I think there's quite a pessimism outside of these kind of ventures. I think it's fine if they fail, but the idea of trying, I think, is the most important thing, because the space relies on economic drive, and that comes from public opinion. If all you say is it's too hard, the people who have given their lives to studying this kind of thing say it's too hard and it's not worth it, we'll never get anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I'm very much in love with this program, is that it's out there.
I think you find it quite
something
poetic as well.
Absolutely.
The idea of going out and dying.
Yes. It's the idea that if you could go, is it worth paying that ultimate price to stand on another world? And I think it's quite a personal question. If you could go to Mars knowing you couldn't come back, would you go? And I would.
Would you guys go?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't?
You wouldn't go.
Like, we're saying in a, like,
just
it's possible.
Yes.
And
say
let's
this
imagine
mission
that you
is
could
sanguine and
go.
it works. Yeah.
But you would die there.
I'm not sure I would, to be honest.
It depends. If you can take your family and loved ones and friends.
Just
have a
you.
giant Mars party.
I mean, the way we're thinking, I think the
All
way you
go
want to frame
together.
this is this is the cost you have to pay for going. Like you said, I
Yes.
think you said it brilliant. The cost you have to pay for going and standing on another world.
Is that you'll die.
That is pointless. If you're going to stand, if you're just
I
going to stand
agree
on another
entirely
world
with you.
and you're going to die there, and there's literally no civilization there, and you're going to die before you can even set up anything for like future generations on that planet.
Okay, this is brilliant because normally I'm the one that everyone disagrees with. Okay, this is like the first time that we've had a.
I mean, I absolutely sympathise with it. I think personally that it is worth the idea of pure experience, the idea of pushing the boundaries of reality to the point that you know for certain, to the point that you can feel it under your feet, that you're standing on another planet.
I'm quite happy.
And you're laying groundwork.
One.
But it's not just the kind of airy-fairy idea of, you explore it. That will really lay the groundwork. You will provide valuable data, indispensable hard data for future people to come along and actually do this kind of groundwork.
But there's better ways of doing it.
Yeah, I
There's safer
agree.
ways
There
of
are.
doing it.
I think that's why, you have to put in the proviso of, let's say that this is actually going to happen, which is probably a very limited possibility in reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, but I think it's worth saying this kind of thing because, like we say, this mission is so difficult because we don't have any data. We don't have anything to go on. No one's ever done this before. We don't even know how long people can live in space before they become.
And this is,
hideously,
this is exactly
deformed.
where we started. We
Yes.
started off by saying there was a space age, at least in terms of the public eye.
Yeah.
And I know we've talked about this almost every show, Harry, that, again and again and again, we've had a crash, we've had an explosion, somebody's died, something has failed, it hasn't quite worked, again and again. And it may sound very negative. And then we've always said, no, it's because we're pushing
Absolutely.
the boundaries. We're at the forefront. People haven't done this before.
Yeah.
This is new. This
Things
is
are going to go
entirely
wrong.
what you expect.
Yeah.
Like, just remember what you said at the beginning of this emission, of this thing, of this broadcast. You were like, at the beginning, we didn't know what happened. We sent chimps,
Yes.
then a dog, and then finally a man. So you see, like, we're pushing it, and that's we need to like go step by step, because if we just like sprint,
if we just sent 100 people to Mars,
we're gonna we don't know what's gonna happen. They might
that
just
would be
die
a bit
at
of a jump.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, how many people died trying to get to America and travel
Or just
the world and
flight
explore?
in general. I mean, don't jump straight to space flight. Just aeroplanes, flight in. We take it for granted. The fact that you can get people. I mean, people used to, round of applause for your pilot when you landed. that was just the way it worked.
I still do it.
Do you?
Don't believe they do. Like, I mean, they do. I know it's their job, and everybody's like, yeah, it's their job. I'm not applauded for like doing my forms, but I'm like, yeah, but they have your lives in their hands.
Would you do? I'd love it if you did a round of applause for Taxi Driver.
Well,
We made it.
I wouldn't do it because they only
Bus
have
drivers.
Bus drivers?
You won.
God, that might be worth it.
Oh, that would be brilliant.
But I tell them cheers.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
so you know, it's like the small thing, but like
I think you should definitely clap. Anyway,
next time.
But it is worth saying, you know, but that is true. But also, we came an incredibly long way in a very short amount of time, and we are facing an exponential growth in the rate of discovery and innovation. We went from flight to space travel in 60 years.
Yeah.
Ridiculous pace. And
it's not. I mean, I think you run the risk in that comparison of making them sound like they're comparable.
no,
Space travel is so much harder than flight. I mean, the amount you have to have a pretty damn big explosion to get yourself up there.
Yes.
You don't have to have the same kind of explosion.
But again, we
airplane.
can say that they're equally, disparate. The idea of getting to orbit and getting to another planet. The distances involved and the calculations, the accuracy you need are, barely understand. You can't really comprehend the idea. It's like I think that the analogy often used is like it's like hitting a target the size of a crossbow board, from New Zealand. If you're standing here and you fire a crossbow, you've got to hit a target in New Zealand.
Yeah.
The idea of that kind of accuracy is just incredible. It's not just shooting yourself into space.
So are we in a new golden age? Admittedly, it looks different to the last one. Is this a time for hope, or are we a bit pessimistic, or is there too much almost pseudo space going around? What do you think?
I think it's a new golden age in the sense that more and more people are interested and more people are capable of sort of funding themselves, their own space flights into space, the commercial stuff. I think the amount that could be made if you were really clever about it from mining in space would be great. And yeah, maybe hopefully this will all lead to a great revolution in spaceflight, and we'll be able to get to another star. But
yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
How about you?
Personally, I think it's a time for hope. Definitely, like things are being discovered. We're making progress, but I don't think it's a golden age as much as it was before.
Do you think there is one coming, or is that done?
There might be coming.
Time passed?
No, I think there might be one coming, but it will have to wait for like a different like economic system in the world, like a more stable, a more like optimistic, even socially speaking, because people at the moment aren't the most optimistic people.
No.
We all know why. And so I think at some point in the near future, maybe we'll go back to that stable as we used to be. And at that point, we might be able to start a golden age. But right now, it's a time for hope. Yeah.
Okay. Harry,
Fantastic.
golden age or hope? What do you think?
I absolutely agree with him. I think that a new golden age could be facilitated by this new arena that we're entering with. Private enterprise really does have the power to take control out of economic upswing and recession, the cycle of economic pressures. It can be it's surpassed by the idea of private ventures bunching together.
Great. What a wonderful summary.
Lovely.
What a wonderful ending.
Guys,
thank you very much, Matt and Ed, and thank you for coming on from Warwick Rockets. Best of luck also with all of the projects that you're doing.
Do let us know about the success of your mission, and we'll tell the world.
It's been a real pleasure having you on. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll be back in 2 weeks, same time. That's 10 o'clock on Saturday in 2 weeks' time.
We will indeed. Thank you for listening, guys, and have a great weekend.
Have a great one.
Have a great week.
We're going to go out on Echo Smith. Come together.
It's me again. Thank you for listening to Because the Universe. Remember that our next show will be on in 2 weeks' time from whenever you were last listening. And do email us at becausetheuniverse@aol.com if you would be interested in coming on to a show. We would love to have you with us.